What's going on, Dolphins? It is your boy Dillon, and I am here to do my post-game analysis video for you. I'm doing it now. I'm doing it early because, as you guys know, or at least some of you I'm sure know, my situation has been altered a little bit. So real quick, just to, touch on that before I get into this analysis and stuff. I do want to apologize for not having, a live stream today. Unfortunately, things are getting tighter and tighter, and I can't afford, to pay for NFL Sunday Ticket anymore. That shit's expensive as fuck. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't even able to watch the game today live. Like, I listened to the radio broadcast of it and followed along in the play-by-play, and then, I just got done watching the entire game, the game in its entirety on Game Pass, because I still do have that. My subscription is good through the rest of the season. So I was able to do that. And then, I'm going to give you my analysis. So I do apologize for that. Unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm broke and, unfortunately out of work because of all this stuff, and, unemployment's getting ready to run out. So, and I got to make sure I can eat. I don't, even know if I'm going to have a place to stay for, too much longer. So, unfortunately. So, anyway, it is what it is, but I do apologize for not having that. Unfortunately, it also means that I likely will not be able to do any more live streams for the games, as I will not even be able to watch them myself live. So that sucks. Again, there's not really anything I can do about it, though. Like, I can't make money out of nowhere. So, but anyway, moving on, I do also want to really quick just update you guys on something that I did make a video on earlier, and that is the Joe Burrow situation, because as it is official now, he tore his ACL and is now out for the remainder of the season, and obviously will likely miss, at least probably the off-season program for the Bengals. So, their worst nightmares, came to realization in that scenario. And, I as you guys have, heard me say before, I personally didn't like the idea of putting Tua in because of the fact that he's got an injury history, because he's a rookie quarterback that's going to make mistakes, and that still needs to learn the rest of the playbook and gain chemistry and learn, how to operate in the NFL and all those things. Plus, it's, played during a pandemic when it's pretty much impossible, to stay up to the required conditioning to play out a full season. And then, because of that, and the fucked up off season, the injuries are out of control just across the league. So, and then when you look at the way that this game turned out, it just kind of fuels that a little bit more, right? So the concerns there, because, he did go into this game, Tua did, with, a minor, foot injury. He did take a beating. He got sacked 6 times in this game, and, it's concerning. So, but, the Dolphins still, though, are relatively healthy, and, even in this game, they did have a couple injuries, but, to this point, the Dolphins still do remain overall pretty healthy. And so, using that to transition a little bit, into how this game actually played out, going into it, I told you the Dolphins. So, first of all, the overview is this was definitely a back down to earth moment for this team. And overall, they just did not play very good. It was pretty bad the entire day. Even on defense wasn't all that great. They had some moments, but it was pretty bad. But going into this, they definitely had the advantage, being that they were a 6-3 team going up against a team that was very much underperforming to this point in the season. Now, to be fair, they also did have an advantage because of the fact that they were pretty unquestionably the healthier team, right, going into this overall. the Broncos were definitely affected more than the Dolphins were with injuries and also COVID-related stuff. Right, so they had that advantage, and they did not play well, and they ended up losing the game, and they needed to win this, right? For multiple reasons, to show that they really are on the right track, and also because they want to keep their season going the right way, and make it to the playoffs and stuff. And unfortunately, this is not helping either of those causes. So, that kind of sucks. But so let's get into this real quick. The injury report going into it, the only two players who were listed as limited on the Thursday's injury report for the Dolphins was Solomon Kindley and Kyle Van Noy. Kindley had the foot injury and Kyle Van Noy has the hip injury. Kindley did end up coming out. He was one of the injuries during the game with that foot injury, and he was questionable to return, and I don't believe he did. I could be mistaken about that, but I don't believe he did. And then the other one, just real quick, was also Salvon Ahmed, the running back with a shoulder injury. And when he was taken out, he was listed as questionable, but he did end up coming back into the game. So that is good to see, but, he is getting banged up. And this Dolphins team is getting banged up, So, unfortunately, you don't expect the injury situation to get really any better, right? You can hope that it maybe stays the same and it doesn't get worse, but it's not, and maybe, I guess, they will likely get Devon Godshaw back if they do make it to the playoffs, right? But, their overall situation is they're likely going to get, more beat up as things go on. Anyway, Breida was back in this game, but he was listed, he was a full participant in practice this past week with his hamstring. Same thing with Kevon Frazier with his shoulder, cornerback Byron Jones with his Achilles, Shaq Lawson with his shoulder, Jamal Perry with whatever, I don't know, Durham Smythe with his knee, and Tua with his foot. On the Broncos side, they did have Drew Lock with ribs, tight end Noah Fant with ribs, and tackle Jake Rogers with a shoulder, who were limited. They had Joe Jones, who did not practice. Let's see. Also limited was Calvin Anderson, cornerback AJ Boye, and then Jerry Jeudy. And then full participants were Josie Jewell, Trey Marshall, and DeMar Dotson. And pretty much all of those guys did play. I think the only one probably that didn't was Joe Jones. Yeah, so anyway, the Dolphins absolutely should have won this game. And look, next week, just real quick, is a must-win. They're about to go play the Jets. It's in New York. The Jets are still winless. We'll get into that more later, but if they did manage to lose that game, I don't expect them to, even with this loss to the Broncos. I would definitely still expect them to win that game, but if they did lose to the Jets, that says pretty bad things about the team and would be a pretty big, data point to suggest that they really actually have not come as far as it would seem. Now, we'll have to wait and see. This loss was actually, pretty bad in a couple different ways, but it's definitely not something that is insurmountable. They could definitely come back from it, and they could definitely get things back on track. And look, Joe Burrow is going to be out, so they're not going to have to play him in their game against the Bengals, so that makes it an even more of a likely win for them. The context will, of course, include the fact that the Dolphins really haven't had to play any high competition. Either it's been, bad teams or teams that are really, really beat up, right? So, that is definitely part of the context on the season, but they can definitely turn things back around and get things back where they want to for the remainder of the season. All right, so now let's get through these statistics and then the play-by-play, because there is a lot to talk about in there. So the Dolphins do drop to 6-4. The Broncos now move up to 4-6. They won. The Broncos won 20-13. It was obviously a pretty low-scoring game overall. We had 223 total yards to their 459. Obviously, bad. offense and, bad defense on that number, right? We had 167 passing yards to their 270. So our offense in the passing game really wasn't, doing all that much. And, they didn't light us up in the passing game, but they were productive for sure. We only had 56 rushing yards. That is definitely not good enough. Definitely not good enough. And we gave up 189. So they had a really good day on the ground. Obviously not good at all. We were only 3.7 yards per play, which is pretty bad. And we gave up 7.3. So also not very good. They did lose a fumble and throw an interception, and we threw an interception. So we did actually, and we also got a turnover on downs. Well, they did. We got the ball from it. So we won the, turnover battle, and Xavier Howard got his 6th interception. So that was good, but obviously nothing near what it would take to, get the win. And we were solid on third downs, 43%, and we held them to 33%. But obviously those are only, a couple data points, and when you put it in with the whole thing, obviously not good enough. We had the ball for 29 minutes, 41 seconds. They had it for 30-19, so they won the time of possession battle, but we kept it close. We had 5 penalties. They had 8, so we won that battle too. But obviously not good enough. So Ryan Fitzpatrick actually did end up leading the way statistically for the Dolphins. 12 of 18, 66.7% completion percentage, 117 yards, no touchdowns and an interception, and a 61.6 passer rating. So obviously, though, overall, not a particularly stellar, stat line, and he did throw the interception there late in the game, which we'll talk about, which, prevented them from being able to put up points and then, get the score. But we will talk about that more when we get to that part of the breakdown. And Tua did not... He had a couple moments for sure, and again, we will get to that in the actual, play-by-play breakdown, but overall, he did not have a good day. He was 11 of 20, only 55% completion percentage for 83 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, and an 81.9 passer rating. But again, I have to keep it real with you guys. I mean, look, I give you guys super detailed and super nuanced, and I tell you guys the full picture, which means that includes the bad things, the things that nobody else wants to talk about. And so there were 2 plays in this game where he should have had interceptions, where Tua should have thrown interceptions. One of them was an interception, but he lucked out because there was a holding call. Again, I'll talk about that more in a minute. Drew Lock was 18 for 30, 60% completion percentage, 270 yards with no touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 75.7 passer rating. Salvon Ahmed led the way for us in rushing, 12 rushes, 43 yards, and a 3.6 average. Obviously nowhere near good enough. Melvin Gordon, and conversely, on the other side of the ball, Melvin Gordon had 15 rushes for 84 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 5.6 average, and Phillip Lindsay had 16 rushes for 82 yards and a 5.1 average. And then Drew Lock sprinkled in 2 rushes for 23 yards and an 11.5 average. So obviously, terrible in the run game today. So that's definitely not good. Parker led the way for us in the passing game, 6 of 9 for 61 yards and a touchdown. Mike Gesicki was 4 of 5 for 43 yards. Salvon Ahmed 5 of 6 for 31. Malcolm Perry 3 of 5 for 23. Antonio Callaway 1 of 1 for 13. Jakeem Grant 2 of 6 for 12 yards. Just real quick, just so you guys know, if they're under 10 yards, I usually don't put them unless they've also had a touchdown. Just so you know. Let's see. Tim Patrick led the way for them. 5 of 8 for 119 yards. Noah Fant, 4 of 5 for 55 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 3 of 8 for 37 yards. KJ Hamler, 4 of 6 for 35. And Nick Vannett, 2 of 2 for 24. We didn't have any fumbles. Melvin Gordon had 1 for them, and he lost it. Defensively, Eric Rowe led the way for us. 7 solo, 3 assisted with a forced fumble. Xavier Howard had 6 solo, 1 assisted, a tackle for loss, an interception for 10 yards, and 2 passes defense. Nick Needham, 4 solo tackles and 2 passes defense. Bobby McCain, 3 solo, 3 assisted. Landon Roberts, 3 solo, 2 assisted, and a tackle for loss. Zach Sealer, 3 solo, 1 tackle for loss. Emmanuel Ogbah, 2 solo, 1 assisted, 1 tackle for loss. Brandon Jones, 1 solo, 1 assisted, and a tackle for loss. Andrew Van Ginkel, 1 solo, 1 assisted, and a forced fumble. Also, just so you guys know how I do my formatting on this, I usually don't list them unless they've had at least 3 solo tackles, or having something else like a tackle for loss, interception, pass defense, forced fumble, fumble recovery, stuff like that. So if they have less than 3 solo tackles, they'll get on the list with one of those additional stats. In total, the Dolphins defense had 36 tackles with solo tackles with 23 assisted, so they still did do a solid job of getting around the ball and bringing, guys in to gang tackle, whereas opposed on the other side, in total, the Broncos had 38 tackles solo, only 2 more than us, but only 14 assisted tackles, right? So the Dolphins definitely did a better job of getting more guys to the ball. Obviously, definitely not good enough. They did have 5 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, fumble recovery, an interception for 10 yards, and 4 passes defense. So overall, the stat line for the Dolphins defense, was solid. But when you look at the game tape and some of the big plays they let up, and then especially how, they let up 189 yards on the ground, over 400 yards in total, 450 yards in total, they overall didn't have a very good day. But there is some bright spots, some silver linings, and some things to build on for sure. Anyway, Justin Simmons led the way for them. 6 solo, 1 assisted tackle and an interception, and 2 passes defense. A.J. Johnson, 5 solo, 1 assisted tackle. Bryce Callahan, 5 solo. Malik Reed, 4 solo, 2 assisted, 1.5 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. Bradley Chubb, 4 solo, 1 assisted, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Deshaun Williams, 3 solo, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Draymond Jones, 2 solo, 1 assisted, 1 sack. Kareem Jackson, 2 solo, 1 assisted, and a pass defense. A.J. Boye, 2 solo with a pass defense. Sylvester Williams, 3 assisted tackles and a pass defense. DeMarcus Walker, 2 assisted with a half sack. And like I said, the total tackles, they had 38 solo, 14 assisted, 6 sacks though, which is obviously just crazy and way too much, especially for an undersized quarterback who is injury prone. You don't want to see that. He took some big hits today, especially that last sack. He got twisted up, not very good. He was all right, and he didn't seem to be gimpy or anything, but again, still, you don't want to see that, especially when you just had earlier today Joe Burrow end up going out with a torn ACL, and so on and so forth, right? So, but then they also throw in 5 tackles for loss, that 1 interception, and then 5 passes defense. So they had a solid defensive stat line overall. And then when you add the further context of how, they only kept us to 13 points. We didn't move the ball very well, had only about 50 rushing yards. They had obviously the better overall defensive day. Jason Sanders was 2 of 2 on his field goals with a long of 53, 1 for 1 on his extra points. Brandon McManus was 2 of 2 on his field goals for a long of 47 and 2 of 2 on his extra points. Matt Hawk had 6 punts, obviously more than you want, with a 47.3 average, 1 inside the 20 and a long of 54. Sam Martin had 3 punts, 52 average, 1 inside the 20 and a long of 56. We didn't have any kickoff returns. Deontay Spencer had 1 for them of 22 yards. Jakeem Grant had 1 punt return for 6, and Deontay Spencer had 3 punt returns for a 3.3 average and a long of 9. All right, key points and analysis. Did we win? Obviously not, which sucks. And it was a pretty bad loss, which sucks even more. But let's get into the actual breakdown. So in the first quarter, Dolphins start the game with the ball, which means obviously the Broncos would get it after half, and they did. The Dolphins did go 3 and out on their first drive, which was unfortunate. They were unable to really move the ball, which did include a couple off-target throws by Tua, although he did show some of his ability to avoid the pass rush on that drive. Ultimately, they went 3 and out. Then on the Broncos' first drive, they end up with the interception after just 3 plays. The Dolphins' defense did get the Broncos to a 3rd and long, so good on them, which did set up the Howard interception, which is his 6th of the season, league leading. So that was awesome and obviously a bright spot of the game, but overshadowed by the end result and the overall play. Then the Dolphins do get the ball back, and on the short field, it was their only touchdown of the game. They did take advantage of that, which was great. But obviously the offense overall didn't do so well. So real quick, good on Dolphins offense for taking advantage of the short field set up by the interception. However, a couple points of emphasis here. The first one is not a good one. It's a negative. On second and 6, it was a throw to Parker. Tua throws a bad off-target pass, resulting in an interception. This was the first one that should have been an interception that I was talking about. And look, man, I mean, I'll take it. The kid's getting super lucky with these fucking turnovers, bro. Like, people keep saying, well, now he's, 6-0 when it comes to touchdown interception ratio. And that's true, but he's made some pretty poor decisions that he's just gotten super lucky on. And there were 2 in this game. This was included. It was intercepted, but he does luck out. There was a defensive hold that wiped the play off the board, gave the Dolphins 5 yards and an automatic first down. So if it wasn't for that, it would have been a pick, and the Dolphins wouldn't have even gotten that first touchdown, their only touchdown, right? And so, but additionally, right, when you looked at the actual penalty, it was actually a pretty weak call as well. Now, there isn't, an argument that he, got a little bit of the jersey, but it didn't restrict Grant's ability at all. It didn't stop him. He got like the tiniest tug, to be fair, tiniest little tug on his jersey. I would say it was definitely not anywhere near enough for the call. And it did not hamper or hinder Grant's ability to run his route, to get out of his break, to make a play on the ball, even though it wasn't even really going towards him, any of that, right? So I thought it was a bad call. If I'm being honest, it should have ended up in an interception, But again, I mean, he gets lucky, right? And so they do get the ball, they do retain the ball. And so having said that, right, having pointed out, the negative thing that everybody hates me pointing out, it was 1st and goal, right? So the Dolphins get the ball, 1st and goal, and from the 3-yard line, Tua does deliver a dime, right? So this is one of those flash plays, right, that shows his potential, right? Throws a dime, back shoulder to the back right corner of the end zone for Parker, and they get the touchdown, right? So, yes, he did make a troubling mistake there that ended up in an interception that he got lucky on, that got called back, but then he made a really nice play to get the touchdown after that and take advantage of it. Now, Broncos then go 3 and out on their second drive. Couple quick points of interest here. On 2nd and 9, it was a pass to Patrick. That was an incomplete pass. It was just an overthrow and a miscommunication by Locke to his between Locke and his receiver, right? So, just to explain how the drive ended up with the result it did, that was part of it. And then on 3rd and 9, it was a pass to Jerry Jeudy. And this was good on the Dolphins defense. So, part of it was mistakes by the Broncos, but part of it, especially on the 3rd and 9, the 3rd and long, good on the Dolphins defense for getting good pressure and having tight coverage, which ended up forcing the punt. Then the Dolphins do go 3 and out on their next drive, their 3rd drive of the game. Quick points of interest here. On a 2nd and 6, it was a pass to Parker. Tua avoids the pressure by stepping up in the pocket, but delivers an off-target throw again, just out of the reach of Parker, that gets deflected by Parker and nearly picked. So this was the second time that he nearly had an interception. And, I'm sure there's plenty of arguments that you can make along the way. You could even say that had it gotten picked, it would have been more on Parker, but not really, because if Tua would have just placed the ball better, Parker could have gotten the reception, and he could have made it pretty cleanly, maybe even potentially made the defender miss. In fact, I can almost guarantee he would have made the defender miss, and could have broke off a, pretty big gain, but, he was a little off target. Anyway, then after that, though, on 3rd and 6, Tua... and this is not on him. This is just, unfortunately, the way it played out. On 3rd and 6, and what ended up causing the 3 and out, after the incompletion to Parker on 2nd and 6. 3rd and 6, Tua was forced to step up and scramble, but ultimately got sacked. It looked like he got back to the line of scrimmage, but he ended up being marked down, I think, just like a yard shy. So it ended up being the Broncos' first of 6 sacks on the day. Then the Broncos get the ball back, score a touchdown after 11 plays on their 3rd drive. This makes the score 7-7. Obviously, it was 7-0 after the Dolphins got their first touchdown. The Dolphins defense did have some nice plays, and the Broncos offense did shoot themselves in the foot a bit with penalties on this drive, but the defense ended up surrendering a touchdown, including some key 3rd down conversions. One was on a 3rd and 9 earlier in the drive, and then later they got to a 2nd and 22 that ended up becoming a 3rd and 13, and Drew Lock ended up running for that first down. And the Dolphins let that up, ended up being, a touchdown as a result, bringing the game to 7-7. So a bit, some good plays by the Dolphins defense, but then also some breakdowns. Dolphins go 3 and out on their 4th drive. 1st and 10 to Grant. This is one of the, just the notable plays on that drive is 1st and 10. Again, Tua was a little late and off target on the throw and allowed the defensive back to make a play on the ball. Now, look, he was going through his progressions. He got to his progression pretty quick, but he just didn't get the release fast enough, right? So Grant was like he's supposed to... so... I'm not super great with like the X's and O's, so sometimes I have a hard time explaining it. But Grant did basically just a little comeback or a curl route to the outside, and the ball was supposed to be thrown as he's coming out of his break or just before, right? And he was late. He didn't throw it until he was getting out of his break. That allowed the defensive back to make a break on the ball and cause a pass defense or get a pass defense, and then whatever. Not the biggest deal, right, in that particular case, but again, because you just gotta be fair, and you gotta have an unbiased evaluation of it. So on this drive, that was, unfortunately part of what ended up, causing them to go 3 and out, because then on the very next play, it was 2nd and 10, they got to pin their ears back a little bit, and they got their 2nd sack of the day. Then Denver goes 3 and out on their 4th drive. After that, 2nd quarter starts. Dolphins go 3 and out on their 5th drive. Then the Broncos get the ball back and score a field goal on their 5th drive after I don't even remember how many plays because I apparently forgot to put it. Anyway, that brings the game to 7-10. Broncos lead. Quick points of interest here. On 1st and 10, it was... the play was intended for Tim Patrick, Lock and Patrick, and it was a completion to Patrick, and Patrick just settled down in the Dolphins' zone defense, makes the catch, and they pick up a big gainer for 39 yards on the catch and run. But then the Dolphins come back after letting up the big play, and they were tough on defense. They held and forced the field goal as opposed to letting up a touchdown. So again, a little bit back and forth. That was pretty much how the Dolphins defense was all day. It was back and forth. They had a couple good plays, then they had some bad plays and let up some big runs, or a big play in the pass game here and there, right? So, and then obviously the Dolphins offense, struggled pretty mightily. Anyway, then the Dolphins score a field goal on their next drive, bringing the game back to 10-10. Solid drive to get points and tie the game after 4 3 and outs to this point. So obviously they were struggling, but then they, drive down and at least get, the field goal. But a point of interest, and part of the reason why they were unable to get, more than just a field goal and get a touchdown was because on a 3rd and 10 play, this was where the Broncos got their 3rd sack to force the field goal. Then Broncos get the ball back, score a field goal on their next drive to make the game 13-10 in favor of the Broncos. Dolphins defense did allow points before the half, which was unfortunate because this was right before the half, and Broncos obviously got the ball after half, so they did let up some points, but they did hold it to a field goal and not a touchdown. So, not the worst thing in the world, and obviously it still remained close. So they bent but didn't break. Unfortunately, though, you do want to try and, not let them get that first part of the double dip. Fortunately, they weren't able to get the second, so, it wasn't too terrible, but that's how it was. Real quick, on a 2nd and 5, there was a big Gordon run on this drive, though, which was unfortunate. Like I said, the Dolphins defense was really back and forth. He broke off a big 25-yard run to the outside on the right of the formation, which helped to facilitate the first part of their double dip. Obviously, they didn't get the second half of that, which we'll get to in a minute. 3rd and 10, it was a 20, and later on the drive, they had a 3rd and 10 play that the Dolphins, let them complete for a 23-yard completion. So they gave up a 3rd down conversion when it was 3rd and long on a, 23-yard catch and run to Judy, which also helped to set them up for their field goal. And real quick, also, too, there was just, a quick little side note. This drive actually likely would have continued, and as a matter of fact, likely would have ended in a touchdown because Drew Lock overthrew a pretty open receiver in his receiver Hamler on a 1st and 10 play that probably would have ended up in a touchdown. So missed opportunity for there, but then they did end up getting the field goal. Good on the Dolphins defense for holding tough and bringing up a 4th down to force that field goal. We now move into the 3rd quarter. Broncos receive the ball to start the 2nd half. They get a turnover on downs on 10 plays, or after 10 plays on their 7th drive. The Broncos did move the ball with ease for most of it. So that, again, was concerning. But couple points of interest. On a 2nd and 7, it was to Fumangali. Locke missed a wide-open receiver that would have almost certainly resulted in a 1st down, if not a touchdown. So, again, another mistake on them that helped to facilitate the end result. On a 3rd and 7, which I believe was the very next play, it was intended for Judy. Rowe and others made a good stop to keep them short of the 1st down, so the Dolphins defense stood tough there. 4th and 1, Dolphins defense was again stout and forced the turnover on downs on the run to Lindsey. So on a 4th and 1, pretty deep inside Dolphins territory, or definitely on their side of the field, they were able to get the stop, hold them, and get the turnover on downs. Unfortunately, the Dolphins then did go 3 and out on their following drive, the 7th of the game. And just the only real notable play on this drive was a 2nd and 10 where Tua got sacked again, giving the Broncos their 4th. Then they get the ball back. The Broncos do. They score a touchdown after 9 plays on their 8th drive, making the game 20-10 in their favor. On a 3rd and 8, it was a pass to Hamler. And, as part of the context for this drive of note, it was a 3rd and 8 play. Now, Noah Igbenogany was in the game. He made what looked like a solid play, right, on 4th down, or to force 4th down, rather. He got a pass defense, but he ended up being called for a defensive pass interference, and Kamu Grugier-Hill was called for a roughing the passer. So, unfortunately, 2 big penalties on the Dolphins' defense there. The roughing the passer penalty was the one accepted. Igbenogany's penalty was declined, obviously, because the roughing the passer gave them 15 yards and a fresh set of downs. And then on a 2nd and 3 play, it was a run to Gordon, which ended up busting the Dolphins' defense wide open, and they let up a 20-yard touchdown run. Then the Dolphins get the ball after that, and they punt after 8 plays on their 8th drive. The Dolphins did move the ball all right, and they even did get helped out by a bad pass interference call on Denver, but they obviously couldn't get any points. They ended up punting. A couple quick points of interest on a 1st and 10. Tua, the first play after the pass interference, Tua evaded the rush, so showed more of his, abilities to evade the pass rush there. Scrambled for a nice gain, but unfortunately, it ended up getting called back because of a holding penalty on Austin Jackson. Then we're in 1st and 20. Tua ends up scrambling out to his left. This ended up being the Broncos' 5th sack of the game as per the official stats. But to be fair, they didn't actually tackle him. They just chased him out of bounds. But since he didn't get back to the line of scrimmage, and since he's the quarterback and he didn't throw the ball, and it was just a scramble by the quarterback, it officially counts as a sack. So that was their 5th on the game. It was a 2-yard loss short of the line of scrimmage. Then on 3rd and 16, unfortunately, there was a false start on Gesicki. 3rd and 21, Broncos get their 6th sack. Tua goes down. That's the end of that. They end up, punting after that on 4th. Then, that brings us into the 4th quarter a little bit. Broncos then get the ball, go 3 and out on their 9th drive. The Dolphins then get the ball back, score a field goal after 8 plays on their 9th drive, bringing the score to 20-13, favoring the Broncos. Dolphins ended up benching Tua on this drive for performance reasons, as Brian Flores said in his post-game press conference. And just real quick, 2 things. One, he was obviously getting pretty beat up throughout the game. Obviously 6 sacks, 5 where he took hits. The last one in particular was the worst of them all, but none of them were particularly great. Although he didn't seem to be hurt, and he seemed to be, moving around fine on the sidelines. And Flores said it was performance reasons. Now, obviously, he didn't perform all that well. However, Flores also said that it basically doesn't matter. It has absolutely no effect, and he is unquestionably going to be the starter next week. Now, look, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I mean, you did decide that he was going to be your guy when you decided to strangely, oddly bench Ryan Fitzpatrick, even though, he won you 2 straight games and was playing well, etc., etc. So from that perspective, not totally strange, but at the same time, it really does kind of, play to what I've been saying, right? And when that initially happened, I told you, look, some of it is really difficult to prove, to be fair, right? But my take on it, my evaluation of it is that one of the primary reasons why Tua was put into the game was because the hype, right? And the shiny toy aspect, right? Because, so real quick, just going back and going to, the fact that Brian Flores is actually a proven liar. I know people hate when I say shit like that, but it's true, right? Because in the 49ers game, he was asked afterwards, and he said, well, why not put Tua in for garbage time, essentially? And he was like, well, what's the point when all he's going to do is hand the ball off? Well, he proved to be a liar, because immediately the very next week, he did exactly that against the Jets. And then additionally, with the comments about how, I don't want to rush him along. This was 2 weeks prior to being named the starter, Tua. 2 weeks before they named Tua the starter, he said, they're my kids. They're like my kids. I wouldn't want to rush him back. And then it only took him 2 weeks to backtrack and backpedal on that and name him the starter. And it was at a super strange and odd time. They didn't even allow practice to go through. Same thing with this, right? In this announcement, okay, based off of your commitment to putting him in the game, it's not totally strange that you're going to commit to him next week as well, especially considering it's an ailing Jets team that you're going to play. But why not at least give it the week of practice? Why do you have to just immediately definitively say now, right? I'm just saying, right? You could, after this, because if it was bad performance, right, and if that was your reasoning, which it was, then see how he does, man, because, Fitzpatrick made some mistakes. He obviously threw the interception towards the end, but he gave you a chance to come back and win this game, and Tua was playing pretty bad. The whole offense was playing pretty bad, and frankly, since Tua's been in, they haven't really even been all that good. They've lucked out in so many ways, right? So not just, 4 or 5 potential interceptions that he should have had, Tua, right? Because there were 3 prior to this game, and he had 2 more in this game. So there's 5 potential interceptions he lucked out on just because the defenders couldn't fucking squeeze it, or because, you know, one of them just so happened to barely step out of bounds right before catching it, or, you know, the one this game that was called back on a penalty, right? So, but also because, you know, in the game against the Cardinals, their kicker somehow miraculously, even though he was on target, it wasn't blocked or tipped or anything like that, just somehow missed it, right? Just barely short and missed it to, and you know, that would have tied the game up. They would have gone into overtime, but the Dolphins won it outright. So, you know, it is the way it is, right? Like, I just find it strange, and it to me, it really, you know, I mean, people can read it differently if they want, but to me, it's just more to the point that I was making about, well, you know, they don't really actually care. They just want their shiny toy on the field, right? And he's pretty much saying that. He's like, we benched him because he played like shit. He didn't say those exact words. We benched him, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and simplifying it. We benched him because he played like shit, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to make sure that he goes in, and we're going to definitively say that now, immediately after that shit performance, and not even let the week play out and see how he does in practice, see how he's feeling after taking all those fucking hits, right? We're just going to say it now, whereas when Ryan Fitzpatrick was playing really well, or, you know, playing well overall, the Dolphins just got 2 wins, they just decided to bench him, right? So, again, to me, all that really says is, it doesn't really matter. They just, and, you know, if I'm being honest, I said it then, I'll say it now, I'm pretty sure that has a lot to do with Stephen Ross. I'm pretty sure Stephen Ross, right? So after he did get put into that Jets game, and they got to see their quarterback, even though he didn't show anything in those few snaps that he took, you know, the hype that resulted afterwards, both with the fan base and in the media, I'm pretty sure spurred a phone call, and Stephen Ross was like, I want my quarterback in the fucking game. The dude that we just took, that we're so high on, that's supposed to be our franchise guy and a superstar, you know, that we took 5th overall despite his injury history, the guy that we tanked our entire season last year for, right? Like, I want him in the game, so put him in. And if I'm keeping it real, my evaluation is that's probably got something to do with this too. Yeah, he had a bad game, but I mean, if it's that for sure of a thing, I'm pretty sure, you know, Stephen Ross is not. And to be fair, I wouldn't say it's reasonable to give up on Tua necessarily. That's not what I'm getting at all. But it doesn't matter that he had a shit performance. He's not getting benched. Right? So he had a terrible game, but he's unquestionably the starter. Whereas Ryan Fitzpatrick had been playing well, got you a couple consecutive wins, and got benched anyway. Right? So it's a little fishy, to say the least, is what I'm getting at. Right? Anyway, let's see. Fitzpatrick then did lead them down, you know, the field for a field goal. Quick points of interest here. There was a 3rd and 3. It was a pass to Gesicki. And this was a big play by Fitz. Throws a dime for a 26-yard catch and run to extend the drive. It was on 3rd and 3. Now it was 3rd and short, but, you know, they took a shot, and Gesicki got open, and he made the play. Fitzpatrick delivered a dime, right? Then on 1st and 10, it was intended pass for Parker, deflected pass at the line of scrimmage. So it is what it is. 2nd and 10, it was a pass to Hollins, where Fitz was a little off target, and this pass was nearly picked off, right? So, you know, Fitz, he's going to have his moments. I get that, right? I get he's up and down. I get people really want to see that potential of Tua on the field, but you're not necessarily going to get that, right? And you haven't gotten that so far, and this game was pretty bad, right? So, again, you know, I don't see any reason why you would have taken Fitz out. Let him do your thing. Let your young quarterback get adjusted to the NFL, fully learn his playbook, get more time with his teammates before you throw him into the fire, right? So, yes, Fitz might be a little up and down, and this is also, I'm saying this also in part because I want people to understand, like, I don't try and shit on Tua. I like the kid. I think he's got a ton of ceiling. Or a high ceiling and a ton of potential, but I just don't agree. I mean, and I do have my concerns with him overall because of his injury history, but I don't agree, you know, with having put him in the game or starting him at all, I would have redshirted him, right? And yeah, Fitz might be up and down, but he certainly could have gotten you to where you are right now, especially considering the fact that a large part of the reason why we even are at 6-4 is because we've played bad teams and, very, very injured teams. Ryan Fitzpatrick could take advantage of that just as easily, if not better, than Tua, especially because he has a lot more experience, is far more comfortable in the offense, has overall better chemistry with a lot of these players, and knows the offense better. I mentioned that already. And generally speaking, at this particular point in time, is the better leader, right? Now, Tua might get there, but he's a fucking rookie, man. Give him time to develop. I don't understand why people feel the need to just throw them into the fucking fire like that. It's stupid to me. It just is. Anyway, then the Broncos get the ball, fumble after 5 plays on their 10th drive. Now, I mean, they were moving the ball. They were about to get a touchdown, but the Dolphins defense held firm. So real quick, a couple points of interest. On a 1st and 10, there was a pass to Fant. The Dolphins defense, it was a big play. It was not a good play by the Dolphins defense. They let up a 29-yard catch and run on this drive, which helped them, to move downfield. Then on a 2nd and 1, Lindsey rips off a 15-yard run to the outside on the left side of the formation. Obviously, again, not very good on the Dolphins defense. But then on 1st and 10, there was a Gordon run that the Dolphins ended up stuffing for a nice 2-yard loss. So good play there. 2nd and 12. Behind the chains, Van Ginkel, Locke ended up running this. He ended up scrambling for this, and unfortunately, Van Ginkel gets called for 2 penalties on this, right? So it wasn't a huge gain, but he picked up a chunk of yardage, Locke did, and then, unfortunately, we gave up more yardage because of 2 penalties on Van Ginkel. Now, to be fair, one of them I thought was total bullshit. So he got called for a holding penalty. That was a good call, but there's a huge difference, right? So he got a holding penalty, and then he also got an unnecessary roughness penalty. The holding call was good. The unnecessary roughness call was a shit call. It was total bullshit. He barely even touched the dude, first of all. He went over him, Drew Lock, that is, and, whatever, right? So, bad call, but there's a difference, right? Because the Broncos were then given half the distance to the goal and an automatic first down instead of just a 5-yard penalty, which would have resulted from the holding call and a likely replay of 2nd down, because that would have been what? It would have been 2nd and 7 because it was 2nd and 12 to begin with. So that is pretty substantial. So that sets him up 1st and goal. Gordon gets the ball. He nearly gets a touchdown, but Van Ginkel, after having, the 2 bad penalties, one was a bad call by the refs, but after having the 2 bad penalties, one of which was a bad call by the refs, comes in and makes, one of the biggest plays of the game for the Dolphins, and which did help to keep them, in this, down to the waning minutes, because he got a forced fumble right at the 1-yard line, which was recovered by Eric Rowe, and, saved the touchdown. The ruling on the field was a touchdown for half a second, but they did overturn it because when they reviewed it, come to find out that he did end up being short. Ball got punched out. Dolphins recover. They get the ball back. Obviously, Fitzpatrick is still in the game. Tua did not come back. They do drive 13 plays on their 10th drive of the game, pretty much all the way down the field. They did get into the red zone, and then, Fitzpatrick unfortunately throws his interception. So, Dolphins move the ball well overall after being pinned deep in their end zone before throwing the interception in the red zone with around a minute left to go. Dolphins aided in part by an unnecessary roughness penalty on Denver that gave them 15 yards and a first down. Fitz did dive forward and was considered a runner, but there was clear helmet-to-helmet contact on that play. So I do think overall it was a good call. I mean, I know, under most circumstances, I wouldn't agree with it. But since there was straight up, helmet to helmet contact. Now, there is still a good argument to say that, there's nothing that the defender could do. And I totally agree with that. However, when it's, so what I'm getting at is most of those plays like that, there is no, clear, obvious, or a good portion. I don't know that necessarily it's most of them, so I don't want to over exaggerate here, but a good portion of them are not clear and obvious. It's not direct helmet to helmet, right? And so I would like to see them not call those, right? But these ones, when it is, you do obviously need to do something to try and help, and it does at least get them to, be cognizant of it and try and make the effort not to have that happen, right? But don't be gratuitous and throw it every time a defender just makes a fucking tackle on a quarterback, right, after they're a runner. Anyway, Dolphins did end up having a holding penalty as well on that drive. It was on Robert Hunt. And then, obviously, it was capped by the interception with about a minute to go. Broncos then end the game after 4 plays. They, ran the ball a couple times, to get the win, 20-13. And just one more time, Salvan Ahmed did get injured with a shoulder injury. He was questionable initially, but did come back. And then Solomon Kinley did leave the game with that foot injury. And I don't believe he came back, was questionable to return. So, yeah, that's it. I know it's kind of a long video, as really per the usual for these, but I like to give you guys a very, very, very detailed, analysis and evaluation, very nuanced with all the good and the bad. Unfortunately, there was, more bad in this game than there was good. And again, it was, kind of a comeback down to earth game for the Dolphins. Let's see how they do next week. They definitely have to get that win against, a reeling Jets team who is, still winless and, has had tons of injuries and so on and so forth. Sam Darnold is potentially going to be back for that, but I don't really expect that to make much of a difference. That's a game the Dolphins absolutely should win to help get themselves back on track to hopefully at least, make it into the playoffs in the 14-team format or the 16-team format, should that occur, if any games do end up getting canceled. They just got to win next week, man. Because, look, this will really be the final thing I say on it. Especially after this win, you can brush this one off. This loss, excuse me. You can brush this one off and say, okay, it was just a hiccup. Yes, they didn't play very well, particularly the offense, and so on. But it's just a hiccup. They can get back to it. They were making progress, so on and so forth. They are still relatively healthy. They can do this thing. They can get it back. But if they were to lose the game against the Jets, that would be a terrible, terrible loss for all of the circumstances and factors involved. So I do expect them to go out and get that win. And now, especially with Joe Burrow being out, I still do expect them to get that win against the Bengals and a win against the Patriots when they play them. As it stands, people can get upset with me about this if they want. I had someone in the comments saying they don't know why I'm a Dolphins fan because I predict losses for them. Okay, I guess if the only way to be a Dolphins fan or a fan of a team means you have to predict that they're going to win every single game, by blowout fashion or whatever, okay, but I don't think they're going to win the game against the Raiders, the Chiefs, or the Bills. So, well, now they're not going to be able to go 10-6, obviously, because they lost this game, but they could still go 9-7, which would still be overperforming on the season overall. And be a pleasant surprise, and still actually might even, in fact, be enough to get them into the playoffs. So, but anything short of that will be really pushing it. It'll be a higher probability if they end up expanding, the playoffs to 16 teams. We'll see how all that plays out. That's how I'm going to wrap it. I'm going to get up out of here. I hope you guys do... Well, real quick, before I do my sign-off, I just want to one more time apologize for not being able to do a live stream and for, unfortunately, likely not being able to do, live streams for the games going forward because I just will likely not even be able to watch them live myself. So, You know, it sucks, but it is the way it is. Yeah, so I will, as long as I am able, continue, though, to, at the very least, make content for you, you know, make preview videos, post-game videos, and keep you abreast of any information throughout the week, you know, the weeks and stuff as we go on, any major developments, in any regard, injuries, COVID, with the Dolphins, whatever it is. Yeah, so with that, I'm going to get out of here. I hope you guys appreciate my perspectives. If you do, make sure you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit the bell if you want to get the alerts. Share my channel and videos with your friends and family. Leave your questions, comments, and concerns down in the comment section. And of course, as always, follow me on Twitter at Dillon Tartaro. And with that, I am out. I'll see y'all soon. Phins up.